just rolling in from the beach, bright and surly, is House of Delegates member Republican from the 84th District, Glenn Davis. Glenn, great to have you, man.
John, thanks for having me. Good morning this morning. It's a gorgeous day out there, a little chilly, but a great day to start the first full week of session.
I tell you what, it's finally good to get this humidity out, right? I mean, this is the first time where I was actually happy it was cold this weekend. It was like, where are we not even going to have a winter? Remember on Christmas it was like 80. I had the air conditioner on at the house.
Oh, I know. It was warm all over the East Coast. I was in Tennessee, and we almost saw 80 degrees there. So we're paying for it now.
No question. Okay. Lots going on, Glenn Davis. I'm going to start with a little politics here and then get into some of your big issues coming up. But we've got to start with the 2nd District congressional race. Scott Ridge will be on our show, by the way, tomorrow. Shocked everybody by resigning or saying he's not going to run for re-election in 2016. Nobody saw that coming, especially me, because he was just on my show early the day prior to that. But look, right now it looks like we've got two announced candidates. Your colleague in Virginia Beach, Republican Scott Taylor, lawyer Pat Cardwell, who is going to challenge Ridgel either way. House of Delegates member Chris Stolley saying that he's going to hold off and decide after the session is over. Ben Loyola, who ran for Congress, who also ran for state Senate, he might get in the race. But the elephant in the room, Randy Forbes. Right. How does this all work out?
Right now it's kind of a toss-up. I think you're right. The elephant in the room is Randy, and we have to wait until I think we get a little bit of a better idea on what they're going to do with the 4th. Is the redistricting going to be stayed? Is it going to go through? I think that'll help make up, Congressman Forbes' mind. And at that point, I think that will open the field to who or who won't get into the race.
Okay, so we're really not going to know anything, and we don't even know the nominating method.
I think everyone realizes if Randy gets in, that's going to be a heck of a challenge, and he's done a phenomenal job up there in Congress. I think we'd hate to lose probably one of the only members of seniority we have left, and except for Goodlatte, obviously. And I think there's going to be a lot of concern over that. So I think you're going to see everyone kind of sit on the sidelines, obviously, except for Taylor, until that decision is made.
Well, Taylor's out there putting a campaign together, but I think it's going to be interesting. And, of course, Randy has to look at all the options right now because that's going to be the District 4. If the redistricting holds, Glenn, that's a very difficult district for Forbes to win. Obama carried at 2012 61%, carried at 2008 63%. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But hey, we're here at the General Assembly. Glenn, you're getting a reputation as somebody that is looking after the economic interests of working people, trying to lower taxes, be the advocate for small businesses and entrepreneurs in this General Assembly. We've been battling this B poll tax, these business professional occupational license in Virginia, which is a drag on small businesses because it's a tax on top line revenue. Even if you lose money as a startup, you're paying this B poll tax. A lot of people can't stand this thing. How do you finally get rid of it?
Well, John, over the years, there's always been this discussion going on, and every year people put bills in to get rid of the B poll or to modify the B poll tax, and none of them were really things that could be implemented. Either, we're going to get rid of it, but no one's got an idea of how to realistically fund it besides just pulling a lot of money out of the general fund, or just passing the obligation down to the localities. And for Virginia Beach alone, it's about a $40 million a year offset. But I think we found a solution now. You've heard me talk before about my market sourcing legislation that gets rid of this double tax on Virginia businesses when they sell services to other states. If we work with that policy and get the revenue that's going to come in off these other businesses outside of the state of Virginia paying taxes in the state like they should, we can take the economic upside of that and use those monies to offset the B poll. And now we get the upside of two things. We get rid of double tax on Virginia businesses, and we also have the monies to get rid of the B poll tax without pushing the obligation onto the localities. And there's a few other things that we can put in there. So I think what you're going to see in about a week and a half, John, is kind of a large tax reform bill come out. That's going to have a lot of them put in there, including the elimination of B poll, but the responsible elimination of it, which I don't think we've seen before.
I tell you what, I'm so glad you're working on this because everybody knows that in order to change the Virginia economy, you have to change the Hampton Roads economy, the Northern Virginia economy, and part of it is creating an environment for small businesses like mine to thrive. And the B poll tax is a real, I mean, for startup companies, it's a real pain in the neck because you're paying a tax. It's one thing paying a tax on business income. You say, okay, I made so much profit or whatever. It's another thing paying a tax on just revenue that comes in, which you know, as a startup, a lot of companies take time to make money.
Well, John, I've been there myself a number of times. I mean, it's always that first couple of years you go through where the business is not making a profit, but you're still paying taxes on your top line revenue. So you may make $1 million in year one. You may have lost $200,000 in losses or have $200,000 in losses, but you're still paying tax on that $1 million top line. And we have to do something about it. But I've always believed entrepreneurs make really good legislators because we're all about innovation. You don't fix problems doing the same thing over and over again. You have to find those new ways to innovate and come up with tax policies that really help get to the issue that may have not been found before. And I think we're getting there this year on a number of different fronts.
Well, I'm excited about what you've going on, what you have as the alternative to the B poll tax. You've also talked Glenn Davis about adaptive tax reform, which is kind of a cool. It's kind of a cool name, but people are like, what's that mean? By the way, American for Prosperity's Lobby Day. Come and check us out. Go to virginialobbyday.com, and we're with Republican of Virginia Beach, 84th District House of Delegates member Glenn Davis. Adaptive tax reform. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's actually mixing the tax reform we were talking about with the adaptive learning of the education policies I have coming out. But, you know, it goes back to the, I think we need to innovate with our new legislation. Education, we've been doing the same thing for decades, some would say, you know, a century. Now we have, with technology, the ability to have adaptive learning. A child does not need to sit in a classroom for the same number of hours as the child next to him and the child next to him. Some children learn certain subjects quicker than others, and there's technology out there that we can utilize, and some states are, that monitor the student's mastery of a subject by how quickly they're reading the page, how long it takes to answer a question on a test, not just whether they got it right or wrong, and a number of other factors that come into play. And through this technology, what's coming out is that we can assess a child's mastery of a subject without having to give them a point-in-time SOL test. You know, John, some of us don't test well. I was one of those kids myself. I've learned things. I had that knowledge, but you put me at a table and give me that test, and, you know, the results weren't always the best. And if we can do this adaptive learning now, and when a child masters a subject, let that child, let's say he masters his math class 3/4 of the way through the year, but he's having trouble in English. He can now finish his math class, showing mastery of it, and spend the extra time the rest of the year working on his English so he can master that within the same year. It's the technology that's allowing us to do it. We just have to be willing to innovate and accept the fact that what worked in the early 1900s is not what we should be using in the 21st century.
You know, that makes a lot of sense, but it's so tough to get any of these changes made. You know, we talk about them, but then they don't get out of committee, or you got the Democrats fighting it because of the teachers' lobby. I mean, how do we get real reform? How do we get real change?
Well, we've been going there. You know, we had a bipartisan innovation committee on SOL reform. Tad Dreesen, as well as Steve Landis, headed it up, and the solutions that came out of there around SOL reform, where we got rid of 23% of all the SOL tests up through grade 8, was all supported by Republicans and Democrats. And when you start talking to the teachers in the VEA, they support additional reforms such as this, because teachers want to be able to control their environment to teach the kids. And I argue that the teacher knows best what needs to be in the classroom to best provide that learning experience that will allow the children to succeed in the future. And reforms like this give more power to the teachers, more time to the teachers to teach in a manner that they think their children will retain, and get rid of this, teach to a test where all the students are taught is to memorize and regurgitate, which does none of us any good.
It does none of us any good, and that's really an issue that a lot of parents are not happy with, because, look, we all understand where how SOL started and the intentions it started for, but now you're into this memorization thing, and teachers are teaching to the test and not to educate their children. And I think universally you're onto something there, because most of the callers that we have think that it's just horrible and that it's got to be reformed. It has to be changed. Not a bad idea when it started, right? Let's have some standards, but just hasn't been. At the Hilton Garden Inn, site of the 2016 Americans for Prosperity Lobby Day, we're with House of Delegates member Glenn Davis, Republican, District 84, Virginia Beach. Glenn, what are some of your other top priorities now as this session gets underway?
Well, John, I have a few more things coming out with regards to tax reform. I mean, for me, I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about jobs. I'm passionate about small businesses. So I really put the majority of my focus there. But one bill I did put in this year was a bill that revolves around step therapy, which if your listeners don't realize off the top of their head, don't worry. I didn't know what it was until 7 months ago myself. But we've probably all had a situation where the doctor prescribes some medicine for a disease or whatever that we or a loved one of ours has, and they go to get that prescription filled, and the insurance company denies it and says, no, before you can take this, you have to take this and this, these other two drugs, and fail for 6 months. And if you fail for 6 months, then you can have this drug. Well, for some instances, mental illness, for example, failure for 6 months doesn't mean that I have a cold a little longer. It means potentially a death of them or someone else. Additionally, there's other diseases out there that if you're forced to fail for 6 months, it just adds to the detriment of the person. So behind the scenes with the insurance companies, you have these formularies, and they basically have this whole general, database of, what you should have to do before you can take this medicine so they can save money. And I have a bill Bill DeSteph is carrying the mirror bill in the Senate that basically gives more power to the individual doctor. No one knows you better than your doctor, and your doctor looks at everything with an individual case basis and says, John, you've got this, and because you have A, B, and C as well, and because of you do this for a living, you should take this drug because you can't afford to fail for 6 months, or your disease is going to get worse if you have to go through this period, so we're going to put you on this. That should weigh more than some formulary adopted by some insurance company because they're trying to make additional profit. So Bill DeSteph and I are going after that this year, and it's going to be quite an interesting debate.
It really is going to be a good debate, and that's another thing that might not be a sexy issue, but I think it's an important issue for people to look at. And as long as we're talking about health, I want to get to COPN, the Certificate of Public Need. There's a movement by some of your colleagues to reform that, revise it, change it, get rid of it. A lot of hospitals, though, concerned about that because they're saying you get rid of COPN and then health providers come in and cherry pick only the most profitable categories that then hurt hospitals that have to provide services that are government mandated. So it's not really a free market. How do you stand on that?
Well, I believe COPN has not been reviewed in a long time, and it needs to be. And there's probably some reforms that need to happen to it. I'm very much on the same page as Chris Daly and a lot of others in that regard. I do not believe, though, that we should go and eliminate COPN. I think that's the worst of all worlds. And the reason why is twofold. First, many claim that we need to make it a free market. Well, healthcare is not a free market. When you tell hospitals, regardless who walks through the door, whether they have insurance or have money, you have to take them, you've killed the whole free market idea.
Right.
So it's not a free market. You need to have something to protect hospitals to come into an area to provide the services that area needs. Now, the flip side is some people are saying, well, then we'll make sure that the same regulations we put on hospitals, we'll put on every other provider, so everyone's going to take people without insurance. Well, now you've taken the issue that the hospitals are dealing with today, and you're putting on any private entity that wants to come into any type of health care. And we've actually gone from the free market, just being taken away from the hospital scenario, and now we're going to say all of healthcare, the whole industry, we're going to get rid of the free market, and I think that's not the avenue to go either. So I think there's minor reforms that can bring it into the 21st century that can make things better for patients and hospitals, but I think the idea of eliminating it all is the wrong way to go.
We're in total agreement with that because it's not a free market system, and so the argument, the cornerstone of the argument is a false narrative to start with, and my concern is the move to eliminate or delineate COPN is driven by lobbyists giving donor money to certain people that don't understand that it's a disaster for hospitals. We're on the same page on that. When I get you back next week, I want to talk to you about the provider assessment that might be an opportunity to look at helping our hospitals in Virginia. Meantime, I'm out of time. I want to thank Glenn Davis for being with us, coming with us live here at the Hilton Garden Inn in Richmond on his way over to the state capitol. Good to have you with us.
John, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Always a